Hello,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Curiosity. We have Lance Bush again here. I've been waiting for this for a lot of months now, but and it's finally here. We're gonna talk. We're gonna make a video review of Neil deGrasse Tyson's uh, discussion with another astrophysicist. So yeah, Lance and I are gonna chip in and give our views or objections or whatever you can see. So yeah,
Yeah,
let's
and I should
start.
say I have not seen this video, so I have no idea what
Yeah.
to expect. I rarely do videos on free will. The first video on my channel was on free will, and then it's like 150 meta ethics videos. So we're taking them back. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
wanted this to happen. I knew you'd only make a free will video if I request you to. Otherwise, you'd keep on making meta ethics video. So yeah, I think it's a good thing, so that you can,
well,
diversify your topics to
yeah,
other topics.
pretty narrowly. I do like 4 topics. It's like consciousness, free will, meta ethics, maybe like peer review stuff once in a while, and that's about it.
Right,
So
right.
who knows? Eventually, I'll have to get into something more esoteric, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
we'll see. All right. Let's start the video then.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't even have any context. I don't know what's going on here. All I know is it's about free will and it's
okay,
about
we
Neil
will
deGrasse
find
Tyson.
out. We'll find out.
Charles, I want to compare notes
Okay.
on free will.
Oh, one of my favorite things
Isn't
to ask
it?
about. Here's my take. It is true that at some level of resolution that we can observe, causality is absolutely true. Given these initial conditions, this is what will happen afterwards.
That's the physicist in
That's
you
the
speaking.
physicist in you
Right,
speaking. So
exactly.
if you take it to its logical conclusion, then there is no free will because everything
So this is already a problem because they're not unpacking what they take free will to be,
Exactly.
and they're already taking it to just be they say causality is real, not even determinism, which
Yeah,
already is a lack of specification. Causality is not inconsistent with any conception of free will that I've ever heard of anybody endorsing, libertarian or otherwise, much less compatibilist. So I think if they're using the standard terminology that philosophers would use, it would be that determinism in particular is true. And that would mean that given some antecedent set of conditions, all the events that follow would follow necessarily. But,
Yeah, exactly.
he's going to end up saying the term predetermined after this. And determined is a little different than predetermined. If you're using the term synonymously, why bother saying pre? If you're not using them if you're not using them synonymously, what do you mean by predetermined as opposed to determined?
Exactly.
So what you've got is a bit of slippage with the terminology here.
Right,
And this is one reason why it's important. Physicists are super duper mega smart people. They have lots of interesting insights. They often reach outside of their fields when they lack training in those fields, and they can make blunders, but they can also have awesome insights. So I don't have a problem in principle to anybody from any field trying to take their knowledge, their expertise, and their thinking and reason about things outside of that field. I don't think we should live in disciplinary silos. So I have no objections to philosophers, physicists thinking about free will. I think it's a good thing. But one of the things you will see is that they often won't be familiar enough and have internalized the vocabulary to speak as fluidly in the topic as someone that does have training. And that's at least one advantage that you could get from philosophy, is that you could be more clear and precise about your terminology. Doesn't guarantee you're not going to say a bunch of goofy and silly things as a philosopher, but it does help. So we already have like causality or determined, predetermined or determined. The terminology here is not super clear.
Exactly.
But the main issue here is simply that there's at least 2 broad camps of perspectives on free will. You have libertarian free will, which is this incompatibilist view that treats free will as something that it would not be consistent. You couldn't have both that form of free will and determinism be true at the same time. It's got to be one or the other. And libertarians say this type of free will is true, that this type of determinism is, determinism is not true. Conversely, you have incompatibilists who say, yeah, determinism and free will, they don't go together. It's oil and water. And it just determinism is true, so we don't have free will. So you basically get views that say they're like oil and water, there's just oil. And then you get views that say they're like oil and water, it's just water. And then you get views that say, no, you could mix the two. You could mix them. And that's compatibilism, which you could see it's right in the name that free will and determinism are compatible. They are blowing right past that dispute, which is one of, if not the central dispute among proponents of free will, is the compatibilism versus incompatibilism dispute. It reveals a lack of familiarity with how the term is being used, understood, and discussed among academic philosophers. And that's a little frustrating because even if you think compatibilism isn't a viable position, you should still, I would think, frame the discussion in a way that acknowledges its presence, especially because the 2020 Phil Paper survey showed that compatibilism is the most common position among philosophers. I believe it was 56%. Whereas libertarian free will and no free will are like in the it's like 12 or 18%. They're like not very high. And then there's a bunch of people that pick other. So compatibilism is the most common position among people that study the topic like professionally, or at least are in the adjacent to studying it professionally. So sorry, I had a bunch of comments right out of the gate.
You hit the bullseye there, and that's my objection to start off as well. So I've watched this video before, and the first objection that came to mind was that they've not started the video by defining the term free will and determinism. So they've not even defined free will. There are, like you said, there are different conceptions of free will, different definitions, compatibilist definition, and the incompatibilist definition. The determinism definition, or what should I say? No free will definition.
Right.
What is it? I'm sorry. Libertarian free will definition. Oh, totally. I told you I'll forget the terms.
Yep.
The libertarian free will and compatibilist free will definitions. So yeah, and these two definitions are different, and they've not even mentioned that starting off the video. So this follows in the whole video. There will be a lot of confusion. But yeah, you just stole the words out of my mouth, Lance. I was about to say that.
Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, that's going to be the main issue. And this is so common when I see people from a science background address the issue. And you will see people that have these super dismissive attitudes towards compatibilism. Well, people listening to this may not know what our positions are. So maybe we could say a bit about what our positions are. And maybe it would make sense for us to try to give some account of how philosophers use the term free will. Although it's a little, the common ways it's construed, I find to be a bit strange. So I'm a free will quietist, meaning that I think that discussions about free will are fundamentally misguided because I think they rely on the notion that there's this thing, free will, and then our goal is to characterize what that thing is. And that, I think, is rooted fundamentally in the sense that certain aspects of human action, primarily those that have a moral quality or an evaluative quality to them, that certain types of judgments about those actions rely on or depend on some set of conditions that need to be met in order on normative grounds to make those evaluations or those judgments appropriate or acceptable or justified. And then the whole dispute centers on what facts need to be true in order for those normative judgments to be acceptable. And I think that is a very weird way of approaching human action that entangles our metaphysical notions with things that fundamentally are actually aspects of human social behavior that don't require a deep metaphysical analysis for us to make sense of them. If I think somebody is being a jerk or is mean, I don't think that requires like strange metaphysics. I'm going to look at the reactive attitudes I have, the emotions I have in response to that person. My judgments about people are playing a role within like a social system, and there doesn't need to be any specific metaphysical construal. So I think these disputes are fundamentally misconceived from the outset. That characterization might make someone think that I would be inclined towards compatibilism. I'm not, but I also don't think compatibilism is like a silly view that you should just throw out in contrast to libertarian free will. So that's what I would say about my position on the matter. So I guess the very short summary would be, I don't think we have free will. but I'm not even sure that there's a substantive and meaningful concept for us to have a dispute about in the first place.
All right, yeah. But you would agree that the ability to do otherwise is something that's non-existent, existent,
Depends
right?
what you mean by do otherwise. The ability to do otherwise.
Do otherwise. Okay, I mean, yeah, I will have to dig a bit deeper there. Like the ability to do otherwise, such that that action is totally up to you and independent of nature and nurture or other external factors, or even internal ones that you don't relate to
Yeah,
yourself.
well, I'd probably agree that you don't have the ability to do otherwise in that respect.
That
Yeah.
that respect, yeah.
So but I don't think that necessarily entails a commitment to determinism.
Yeah, neither do I.
So, yeah. But what about you? What's your perspective on free will?
I'm a libertarian free will skeptic. I don't think, just like you are, we agreed on that, right? So that's my perspective, that free will in the libertarian sense doesn't exist. And what's crucial here is that most of the folk, in folk psychology, most of the people have this sense of agency or autonomy or authority over their actions and decisions, which I'm a skeptic of. I don't think they have total freedom of the will, such that they are the sole agent of their particular decision or action that they perform. Yeah. Do you have anything to add there, or any objections to that?
No, not really.
Yeah.
A couple things I'll say is if you haven't talked to Aaron Rabinowitz, he's a big proponent of moral luck, and that's a really cool
Yeah.
topic that is adjacent to free will. And
Right,
I
right.
find that stuff pretty interesting.
Me too.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'll just say is in the academic literature on free will, at least in contemporary analytic philosophy, free will is often construed in a rather unusual way. It's something like the set of conditions necessary for an agent to be held morally responsible or to be held accountable and subject to praise and blame for their actions. It's very close, even in a non-moral sense, I guess you could say. Like you couldn't really say someone did praiseworthy and beautiful art if they didn't do it of their own free will, or a person wouldn't be able to truly love someone if they don't love them of their own free will. So there's all sorts of actions and social things that humans can do that would, in a certain sense, lose their meaning, their justification, or would remove our justification for punishing, praising, blaming if we don't have free will, whatever that happens to be. And I just find that deeply unsatisfactory. I don't think there is some deep special set of conditions that need to be met for us to praise people, or I could praise someone because I feel like it. I could blame people because I feel like it. And
Yeah.
I just don't accept this notion that there's some deep sense in which I need the permission of philosophy to do so. Like I don't need a justification for punishing someone. You could punish someone.
I
because
agree
you
with
want
you on
to.
that.
Yeah.
I
Now,
agree with you there. Yeah.
that doesn't mean I'm okay with just anybody punishing anybody for any reason, and I don't care. I have standards,
Right. Right,
but I don't think I'm required to regiment those standards in accord with some philosophical principles. You could just do whatever you want. There's no
Exactly.
rules about how you think.
Right, I agree with that. So, given the fact that libertarian free will doesn't exist, so we'll have to lead a society with respect to your own moral standards, maybe. So what we usually end up with is a consequentialist approach, given that free will doesn't exist, to punish somebody for their wrongdoings in such a way that they were solely responsible for those actions, and in a punitive, backward-looking, retributive way. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so that's one implication people often take from not favoring, like rejecting libertarian free will, that it undercuts desert-based
Revenge.
moral responsibility, that people can't really be responsible for their actions. How would I cash that out? Like if you did a bad thing, you deserve to be punished because you did the bad thing and not for any further reason.
Right.
And so if you undercut that sense of responsibility, then that could potentially undermine certain conceptions of the justifications one would have for punishment. But compatibilists, I don't think are restricted to consequentialist rationales for punishment. They could be a deontologist, they could be a virtue ethicist, they could have some hybrid theory. So if you're going to undercut desert-based responsibility, you got to go, straight for what, you have to undercut that either directly or indirectly. I don't think specifically rejecting libertarian free will is necessarily going to get that job done.
Yeah, can you explain a bit more from the last couple of sentences that you said?
Sure. Well, the reasons one has for punishment, if someone's not subject to desert-based responsibility, you could say you're only left with consequentialist reasons, but you don't have to be. You could just think that people should be punished because you don't like what they did, or you think people should be punished for the sake of because they did something wrong. They violated some deontological norm. So you're not like stuck with only a consequentialist rationale for punishing people, even if they don't have desert-based responsibility. You could punish them for a whole variety of reasons. Now, I don't know how many philosophers would endorse that. And maybe something about rejecting desert-based responsibility lends itself towards a kind of consequentialist rationale for punishment, but I don't think it like logically mandates it. So really, I think people could favor pretty much anything in the absence of libertarian free will, or even in the absence of free will altogether.
Right, but usually governments or societies end up with a consequentialist rationale.
I don't know how many societies are legislating on the basis of a stance that they take towards.
Yeah, not specifically, but usually they would be thinking about the good for the whole, the most number of people, like that.
Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think that's a big feature of the law, that it's consequentialist. But what I would say about that is I don't know of any legal system that would distinguish between a distinctively libertarian and compatibilist conception of free will. So while something free will-ish is or some notion of free will is going to be an important feature of probably most legal systems. It's possible that there's some society out there where they just don't care about people's intentions or something. But I doubt it. I doubt there's any of them. Now, they might care less, but I doubt there's any that don't care at all. But I don't know that some fine-grained distinction between compatibilism and libertarian free will has like worked its way into legal reasoning. And I also don't know if those views are going to necessarily lead to practical differences in how people are treated. Because if you're a compatibilist, you might still think that the sense in which people are to be held accountable is one where people can be punished for the sake of being punished. I don't know of any particular reason why compatibilism wouldn't be compatible with a wide variety of different normative positions that one could potentially take.
I totally agree with that. The ones who would disagree with us here would be moral realists. It depends on which kind of moral realism. So what I'm thinking is that a naturalist, moral realist who thinks that well-being is the ultimate goal would like endorse a consequentialist approach. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, then you're just looking at the relation between one's commitments to other philosophical positions.
Yeah, consistency in the philosophical positions, maybe. But yeah, so it's only recently after watching you and reading you that I became, you know that, right? 1.5 years ago or something is what I completely shifted from moral realism to anti-realism. And I've been thinking how it has changed my perspective on both morality and free will. So I used to think like I was a consequentialist and I was a moral realist, a naturalist moral realist. So I was like, since free will doesn't exist, the most rational position would be to follow consequentialist approach, and which means that punishment wouldn't make sense in a negative or backward looking way, or a retributive moral desert kind of way. Desert-based responsibility doesn't make sense. But yeah, now that I know that there's no objective moral truth, my views have changed a lot. I mean, like you just said, you could endorse any kind of a normative ethical position with respect to the knowledge of non-existence of libertarian free will. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you could, but it is
Yeah.
still technically possible to be an anti-realist, and you could be, for instance, a compatibilist and then an ideal observer theorist, and then you might think that there's like a correct set of standards of punishment that people would be subject to. So,
Yeah.
that might look, in practice, a person that held those views, compatibilism and ideal observer theory, would look and act a lot like you might think a moral realist would look, because they would say, look, if you disagree with this one set of moral standards, you're wrong. And this
Yeah,
one set
right.
of moral standards holds that those people should be punished. And it's not about achieving a better outcome. As long as they
Right.
believe that's what a fully formed, ideally rational agent would endorse.
Mhm.
Now, that might superficially look like realism, provided that you think that a realist would be inclined to be the sort of person that thinks that there's only one moral standard and they're inclined to impose it on others. That's not technically a requirement of realism. So that's just an incidental correlation. In practice, moral realists tend to think that there's one universal moral standard, but it's not actually a feature of realism that the moral standards are universal. You could, in principle, be a moral realist and then think like different people are subject to different moral standards. That would be weird, but you could do it. The example I like to give is it's a silly example, but what if you thought that there are these stance-independent moral facts, and then the set of moral standards that apply to you is based on like your astrological sign? So if you're like a Sagittarius or a Gemini, you're subject to different moral standards. Okay, that's still realism, but it would be a realist type of relativism. It'd be very weird. So people often don't keep the distinctions between the different features of these positions separate, and that can lead people to associating endorsement of a position with a particular stereotype or profile they have of the kinds of people that tend to endorse it in practice. You got to be careful about that.
Yeah. I think we can go ahead with the video.
Yeah.
You don't have enough time, right? Yeah.
Oh, 1 second. Where did the video go? Got to find it. Here it is.
It is predetermined by things that
Everything has an antecedent.
whether you know it or not, something is causing it to
Right.
happen.
Something
Right.
thing
That's
that
right.
made
It's
that
always
happen.
going to happen. But
Right.
there is also stochastic uncertainty in the universe. It's built in. There's randomness, there's unpredictability. Yeah. And so you have to ask, I think, if you're a physicist, what level of chaos actually affects you to the extent that you could actually make an instantaneous decision based on other stuff that's not necessarily in your past experiences or what you have just seen in your current environment. Right?
But wouldn't all those past experiences and your current environment, despite the fact that if you're in
Okay, so I think you just said that the future is predetermined, but there's also stochastic randomness. I don't understand how that's non-contradiction. I think that's a contradiction to say that the universe is predetermined, but there's also randomness. So I don't know what he's eventually going to end up saying. Is it randomness or is it determined? I mean,
there might be imprecision in how he's speaking, or maybe you or I don't quite understand what he's trying to get at here. You could have like some type of chaotic system that maybe it's not predictable. Sorry?
Yeah, not predictable, but then determined in the real determinism sense.
Right. Yeah, it's deterministic, but you wouldn't be able to predict it in practice. So,
right.
We could take it back and look at precisely what he says, but there might not necessarily be a contradiction there. If someone's saying, look, there's going to be these processes that occur in the world, like natural processes, where they would look to you like a random number generator. You wouldn't be able to figure out the pattern, but in principle, something is causing them to be that way, and it's some necessary chain of causes. I think that's possible. I don't study this stuff well enough to even know if that's like the right way to think about it. But he might not be saying, hey, everything is determined, also some events are undetermined. That would be a contradiction. And I don't know that he's saying that. But when you hear some of those terms, it might imply some things are random. But I don't think he said random, did he?
I think it said stochastic randomness. I think he used
Did
that
he?
term. Yeah,
Maybe let's take it back.
What
Yeah.
level of certainty in the universe?
Precipitated the thing
That's
that
right.
caused the thing
That's
that
right.
made
It's
that
always
happen.
going to happen. But
Right.
there is also stochastic uncertainty in the universe. It's built in. There's randomness, there's
He
unpredictability.
does say randomness. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he does say randomness. So that seems like a problem. It's a
Yeah.
little weird to say that things are determined and random.
And,
So if you said they're determined and they're chaotic, or they're determined and there's uncertainty, that's what I was focusing on. Uncertainty is just an epistemic issue. It's just, I
Right,
don't know what's
epistemic.
going to happen. It doesn't mean it's not determined. But when
Exactly.
you say random, the other thing though is, if we want to be really charitable, there is a sense in which people use the term random, even though they would say, oh, well, technically it's predictable, but it's functionally random for epistemic reasons. So take like rolling dice or flipping a coin. Those are not really as random as they appear, right?
Yeah.
But they function like they're random. And so maybe that's what he meant, like non-determinate, not a anti-deterministic randomness, some determinism compatible randomness.
Yeah, and let's see. But I don't think that's what he meant. He's talking about real metaphysical randomness itself.
You might be
To the
right,
core.
in which case they're
Yeah.
just contradicting themselves. I'm
Yeah,
trying to be
exactly.
charitable here. If they
So,
are contradicting themselves, that's a bit
That's a problem.
unfortunate. The other
Yeah.
thing to note is that if your choices or your behaviors were the result of chaotic, uncertain, or random processes, nothing about that seems like it would give you free will. Like
Exactly.
if I was determined to, steal the cookie, and then you might say, oh, well, that's if you're an incompatibilist, you don't have free will. But if I randomly stole the cookie, how would I be any more responsible for doing that?
Exactly. I was
Than if it
about
were
to say that.
determined.
I was about to
So-
say that as well.
So it's already going to be a problem. Like indeterminism, randomness, and chaos are not going to get you. They're not going to solve these problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you have to ask, I think, if you're a physicist, what level of chaos actually affects you to the extent that you could actually make an instantaneous decision based on other stuff that's not necessarily in your past experiences or what you have just seen in your current environment. Right?
But wouldn't all those past experiences and your current environment, despite the fact that if you're introducing an element of chaos so that you've never experienced this ever before, your experiences that you have had would then inform your decision about the thing that you've never experienced.
Your inform is the word.
Oh,
Is it
Rather
inform
than
or dictate?
predicate. Right.
Right. Or
Oh.
require.
What's up?
So another objection that I noticed was that he uses the term based on other stuff. Like he says it's independent of past experiences, but then says based on other stuff. So I think as long as it's based on other stuff, it is not independent and it's not free. Whatever will that you have, it's not free as long as it's based on the other stuff. And also he stresses on the word informed when that other guy, the comedian, was talking about the past experiences. If they don't determine your decisions, they at least inform your decisions. But so he stresses on that word, right? Informed. But even if you're not acting in accordance with past experiences, or say, okay, let's say you've been taught something in your childhood and you're acting out of accordance with that kind of an experience, but the new kind of a decision that you'll be making, you might have came across that kind of an experience later on in your life, right? So there are conflicting experiences. One would be okay, so one would be the one that you faced in your childhood, and then later on you kind of realized that that's an immature kind of a decision to make, and you figure out that the new kind of mature decision also makes sense. So I mean, there's always conflicting experiences. So even if he's saying that the past experiences will inform your current decision, but finally it depends on your free will. But then the new decision that you make would also be from one of the past experiences, if not the childhood or from some other phase of your life. Do you get my point?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, so if you make all your decisions based on past experience, and then there's some chaotic or random thing that causes you to have new knowledge, new information, or new experiences, and then that somehow influences your behavior, why would we say that your actions aren't determined? Then you're still responding to whatever experience, knowledge, or information you have, arguably in a deterministic or law-like way. It's just that something abruptly happened. That it's not like if your decisions aren't based on your childhood experiences, that your actions are free. It would just mean that not all causes that determine your behavior have to be in the distant past. They could be
Exactly.
in the moment. Is that what you're getting at?
Exactly. That yeah, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, so that seems right. So yeah, I don't know I don't know what problem they think they're solving by pointing this out, if I'm understanding them.
Right.
But I'm not sure that I'm understanding them. So because they are approaching this without like the standard philosophical lexicon. So
Very
I have
casually.
to think, yeah, I have to, and that's fine. Like I don't like all the jargonization of philosophy, but
Exactly.
it does mean that, and in fact, because I'm more used to a lot of philosophy talk, I sometimes find that that actually interferes with my ability to understand people that are not speaking in conventional philosophical terms. Kind of like if you're a mechanic and someone's describing a problem with a car and they don't know much about cars, and they're giving all this weird terminology that they're coming up with to try to communicate, and you're like, do you mean the carburetor or whatever? I don't know the parts of cars. And they don't know. And so it might sound a little confusing because you're kind of expecting someone to use like the standard terminology. And when they're not, it could take extra work to go, what do they mean? What do they mean? And I think I'm doing that a bit here.
No, it's perfectly fine. Talking about cars, neither do I know a lot of car terminologies, so we're on the same boat there.
I got to be careful. Someone in one of my last videos was a little frustrated at me always talking about how much I don't know things and how excited I seem to be about it. They're like, why are you encouraging and excited about your ignorance? And that's really stuck with me because I do look, I'm like smiling, like I'm happy. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot and I don't know how cars work. I'm not happy about it. I don't know what it is.
It's
but
just
something
our
about
way
it.
of intellectual humility, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to performatively indicate that I'm very intellectually humble in order to cover for the fact that I'm incredibly arrogant and think that I know everything.
Possibly so.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, but don't let anybody know that. All right, we ready for a bit more?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and we're going to run out of time, so we're going to have to do a part 2.
Yeah, we'll have to do a part 2, but I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
As
No,
long,
it's all good.
because it's with you. Another conversation with you would be wonderful as always. Yeah.
You are
You
very good
can.
at saying flattering things.
No, I just state the facts. Okay,
Oh my
because
gosh.
facts and truth are what matter to me a lot.
Facts and
Anyway,
truth. That's
yeah.
what we bring to our channels.
In
All
our
right.
channels, yeah. Lance, do not hesitate to tell me whenever you want to go. All right, we
Yeah,
can
I'll let you
stop
know.
there.
No worries.
All right, and don't forget to
Let you
send me
go.
the video after recording.
Yeah.
Higher,
Oh.
right? That's the thing. Yeah,
Oh.
let's say you're in a room with a whole bunch of audience members. You tell a joke.
Right.
It falls flat. In that moment, you have many things you could do to turn it into a laugh point.
True.
Right? You hear silence and you'd be like, oh, that was good. And then everyone laughs. Or, so you make some
Or
sort
is
of
this mic
comment.
on? That's
right.
the old one.
Right.
What do you do? Do you have the freedom to choose one of several choices that you had designed from your past, that you prepared to deal with that eventuality? Or is the choice made for you already?
But if he was less experienced, he might not dig out of that hole.
Yes.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm sorry. So this brings me back to he gave an example of a comedian, right? So his comedy falls flat, and he has a choice between acting awkward or covering it up with another joke. All right. So what I was thinking is that there could be different experiences that he had. So maybe his childhood was a bit serious, and it's possible that if that's the case, then after that failing of the first joke, he wouldn't be able to, cope up with that awkwardness, and he would falter, and the comedy would be ruined. That's one possibility, and maybe that's his childhood. All right. So the childhood experience is like the serious experience, and then later on in his adulthood, he kind of realizes that that awkwardness doesn't make sense. Just shrug it off and brush it under the carpet and produce new jokes or something. So maybe he got that experience later on in his life. So it's not necessary that you're doing that with your free will. It's just that you had those kind of experiences later, and the exact intensity or the weight of which decision wins over doesn't necessarily have to be out of your free will. It can still be determined. There would be conflicts going on in your brain between these two decisions, but eventually one of them wins, and that doesn't give us free will either, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. And that's one of the sort of standard deterministic things that a determinist is going to say about it. Again, though,
Right.
whether it's determined may or may not tell you whether the person has free will, because we would still have to be clear about whether we're rejecting libertarian or compatibilist conceptions of free will. But the other thing is that people will often ask the question of, like, when you're in that moment, are you able to make a choice? Are you able to decide? And I find that very strange, because people that deny free will are not typically saying it's not possible to make choices, like you can't choose things. It's really going to depend on what you mean by choose. And you don't want to smuggle in your notion of choose to choose using your free will, or in virtue of your capacity for free will, you choose.
Right.
Because there are these very mundane conceptions of choose that would be completely compatible with determinism. So choosing for someone that does not believe in free will and does, let's say they do believe in determinism. So let's say they're an incompatibilist free will skeptic. Why would they say that we don't choose? So here's one way of construing choose. This happens when an agent considers a range of alternatives, selects one from among them, and acts on that selection. Now, like your computer can do that. You could ask the computer, like, hey, pick one of these 5 things, and then carry out the process. And it has some algorithm, and it does it. It's making a choice functionally. And that would be, I think, a perfectly reasonable way to use the term choice. And it has nothing to do with free will, like one way or another. So I'm neither making this point to reject or like reject free will, or to defend free will. It's just that sometimes people talking about free will seem to think that if you deny free will, well, I don't know what they think you think people can do or not do. If they think that means, like, you can't, like, when you get to a fork in a road, you're unable to choose. That would be really weird. And notice the phrasing. I think they said something like, the choice is made for you. Not believing in free will doesn't mean your choices are made for you. It means that you make choices, and those choices are determined. Like what causes you to choose X over Y would be some antecedent set of conditions. It doesn't mean you don't choose. The choice is made for you. It's not like, if you don't think there's free will, that whenever a person like selects an item to eat on the menu at a restaurant, or whenever they decide, like whenever I have to be careful about the words, whenever they end up going for a walk, that they didn't choose to go for a walk. Because if that was the case, imagine how that might work. Like, you see a person walking and they're like, I didn't choose this. And they just keep walking by. No, you'd be like, hey, did you choose to walk? They'd be like, yes. You're like, hold on. We don't have free will. The determinism is true, and we don't have free will. All your actions are determined, and we don't have free will, so you didn't choose to walk. And they're like, no, I'm currently choosing to walk. That's what I want to do. Now you could cash out that person's actions in compatibilist free will terms if you want. Like, if the person identifies with the decisions they make, you could say that's what compatibilist free will is, but you don't have to. You could say, yeah, that person is making choices and they don't have free will. So this idea that free will is like if you deny free will, people can't make choices. It's very strange. I don't know why people say that.
Yeah. Totally agree there.
effectively or efficiently.
Exactly.
But if you've been in 100 cases where you had a joke bomb,
Right.
you have data on how to pull out of it.
Exactly.
So statistically, you have a chance of getting people
And it
to
happens
smile.
instantaneously.
Right
You
in
don't
the
even
moment.
realize that it's happening.
It's in the
you know?
moment.
So
But
it's in the
yeah.
moment. Right.
Did you have free will to not?
See, that's right.
Right.
So now that would be interesting because here you are in a place where your instinct, your training, and
Your
your
10,000
desire,
hours, 10,000 hours,
right,
whatever it is.
will, as a reflex, cause you to say this, this, and this, and then people go, "Wow, that was great! Look how he turned it around."
So, Charles, can I say in that comment
Yeah.
that he preloaded his neurosynapses so that in that moment, they all tripped.
right,
They tripped meaning triggered
That's right.
to go to the solution to that problem.
right.
Same is true.
But then I wouldn't have free will at that point.
That's
It
what
would
I'm
just
saying.
be a response. What I would have is a response to a situation, not
Yes.
necessarily. I wasn't really choosing that.
It chose it for you.
It chose it
you
for me.
you have 5 choices.
You see that? Like, so synapses fire, and then you tell a joke instead of don't tell a joke. So you didn't choose to tell a joke. That's weird. That's a very weird way of describing it, regardless of your position on free will. There's something very strange about that. Like, if that's your view, you didn't choose, then you might want to rethink your conception of what a choice is. It's
Right,
like,
right.
look, I'm not one to get too caught up on terminology, but it not believing in free will and believing in determinism shouldn't result in you being unable to say people make choices. That's weird.
Right. I mean, the word choice has its own utility in the world. Obviously, we need to have words like choices. If the conception of skepticism or libertarian free will means that you have to completely reject the usage of words like choice, and then that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
As well.
where do these philosophers, get away with thinking that they own everyday language? I say people make choices. I'm going to keep saying that, and I don't give a crap
Yeah.
about their theories. Too bad. And I don't think most people would. I don't think we would like radically change our language because of some metaphysical considerations that people may or may not even care about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you have something to say at that point, or I was me pausing? I think so.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Choices, and then your system chooses one of the 5 or
In that moment.
in that moment, right? And so in that moment you are not exercising free will. Did you set it up though with free will in the past so that you could react this way deterministically, but you actually were in control of the circumstance, right? Here's another physical example of that. A football player is trying to sack a quarterback. The quarterback jukes left. The person trying to sack the QB doesn't have enough time to think about whether to move left or right or up or down. It has to react based on years of training and practice and experience. So in that moment, that action is not free. But in the setting up of that moment, if it was free enough, does that constitute free will? From a physics perspective, it might not. Then again, from a psychological point of view or from a biological point of view, it might.
Wait, what good are you if you're not landing on?
Yeah. What's up?
Does that make sense to you? I mean, for example, the example that he showed us that we are trying to feint away from a defender, and that's not an action of free will because that's happening instantaneously. You're not making a decision. It's just muscle memory working. But like there are many previous free will decisions, or it's a conglomeration of many previous decisions that you made that were free for you. I mean, does that make sense to you? I don't think it makes sense.
There's a sense in which I think that's again, I want to be charitable here. So no,
Okay.
it doesn't really make sense. But
Yeah.
I see the distinction that he is gesturing towards. So let's just say we suppose people have free will. Well, if I sit around studying chess all day, presumably that's one of the things people would think I have the free will to do. Like I could choose to study chess, and I could choose to practice playing speed chess. And then once I'm like a veteran speed chess player, there's going to be moments where like you just automatically move a piece. Like you spotted, you saw a few moves ahead. This is the right, like if they do that, I'm going to do this. And you do it so quickly. It's not clear that you consciously deliberated out. You just made it's speed chess. You're making a fast move. Now it would be a little weird to say because those people are not deliberating and carefully considering their decisions, that they're not free decisions on the assumption that their initial decision to study speed chess and practice speed chess was free. Their decision to sit down and start the game was free, but then suddenly they're no longer free in each one of the little decisions they make. I think it would be reasonable to say you can, if you have free will, you can set up, you could like freely choose to put yourself in situations where you would, your involuntary responses are part of an overall context that you freely chose to be in. I think they're saying something like that. And that, if that's what they're saying, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, yeah. I freely chose to get in the boxing ring, but that doesn't mean I have to think it through and freely choose to dodge your punch. Like, right. I just get that sense, dodge, right?
Okay, yeah. If so that's what
you mean, you like freely chose to be in that situation, and it'd be weird to say like, but you could though. You could say that wasn't a free decision. You that was involuntary. It wasn't a free. You didn't have free will. So, but to me, these are just ways that we could opt to speak about people's behavior. It would just be like what choices we want to make, practically speaking, about how to describe human psychology. That's how I would approach the issue, because I don't think there's any deep metaphysical questions here. But philosophers might disagree, and maybe they would disagree. I don't know.
So yeah, I agree with you there. Let's
get through a little bit more of this. I got about, let's say, 5 more minutes.
All right, we'll make another video. I mean, we'll have to probably.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to the halfway point. Let's see.
Sure.
One side or the other. Yeah. I don't need you to say, it could be this, it could be that. And I'm right both ways. Yeah. Whichever the actual answer is, I was right.
Yeah. Well, he's saying, I don't really have the free will to make that determination. I'm going to be right or wrong.
Let's just ask an opinion. In my opinion, I would like to have free will exist in this universe, even though philosophically it can be argued that it does not exist.
Are you happy with a world where you perceive free will, even if it isn't?
Maybe. This has to do with...
Yeah, that one's strange. What does it mean to perceive free will?
Maybe have the feeling of free will, but then know that you don't have free will. Is that what?
Yeah, you know what's strange? Like, what would it feel like to not have free will?
Okay, it would be like thoughts and desires are just coming to you out of the blue, and you're having no say in those.
Is that what not having free will is like? Like, because if you think, like, I already don't think we have free will, but nothing about not thinking people have free will means that I don't think that I deliberate, or that I consider options and select from among those options, or that I don't have a feel that like I'm in control of what I do. Free will isn't a feeling of control, that you're in control. That's not what free will is. So you would have to be real clear about what you mean by free will. So if free will is like a metaphysical notion about the relation between like human agency and some notion of desert-based moral responsibility, that's not something you experience. You experience like voluntary control. That's not free will. So I experience a sense in which I feel like I could choose to move my arm. I don't like look at my arm moving and go, ah, what is happening? It's doing whatever it wants. Like I don't like, I'm walking down the street and I'm like, I can't control it. Ah, like that's not what rejecting free will would lead you to think you would experience the world like. So I don't think if we don't have free will that this would necessarily entail any particular set of experiences. So this idea of perceiving free will just strikes me as weird. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Okay, so one thing that I learned from Sam Harris is that when we meditate, right, so you can kind of break through the illusion of free will, that subjective feeling of free will, in that whenever thoughts are arising in your consciousness, you're able to see the thoughts as what they are, just thoughts arising in consciousness, rather than you appropriating those thoughts, or kind of being in control and creating those thoughts consciously. So the feeling of not having a free will probably feels like that, like you just bombarded with thoughts and desires, and you're just acting in accordance with it. You're just being conscious of it and witnessing those thoughts and desires, but you're not in control of it. And you're able to feel subjectively that you're not in control of it, in such a way that you don't know the background causes of why those decisions came, why this decision and not some other decision, or why this decision in particularly this amount of intensity and not some other intensity, right? So that's probably the feeling of no free will, how it would feel like subjectively. uh, so yeah, I have had certain moments like those after I've meditated, or maybe after I've been high on substances like marijuana. So yeah, I have had those feelings sometimes. So I can feel it. Like once I had magic mushrooms as well, psilocybin mushrooms, and I completely lost this sense of self, and it feels like one with the universe, like that. Yeah, I'm not sure whether you have had such experiences. Have you tried substances, or have you done meditation or something?
Yeah, I've done meditation. Not really the substances stuff. I'm pretty boring on that front.
Okay.
Or at least not in a way that has resulted in like total
Profound
dissociation or
experiences.
anything like that.
Yeah.
So nothing too extreme. But then as far as meditation, I'm very critical of Sam Harris, but I do think that he's said some pretty good stuff about meditation. His book on meditation, I actually think is quite good. Again, in spite of the fact that everything
You've read that?
Yeah.
You've read that book? What is that? Waking Up, right? It's a really
Waking Up.
profound
Yeah,
book.
right around the time he started his podcast, I think was initially called Waking Up, and then he changed it a little later to Making Sense. Now, pretty much everything I've said publicly about Sam Harris has been extremely critical, but I do think his
I was also part of that.
Yeah. But his stuff on meditation, look, if someone who I disagree with very, very strongly says stuff that I think is true, you got to give him credit for that. And I think what he has to say about that is quite good. I did listen to the book. I think I have it on. I think it's Audible. I don't think I had a physical copy. I think it was Audible.
Me too. It was Audible.
Yeah, and
it's there on YouTube as well.
Oh yeah, I think he narrates his own books, and he does a good job with that too. He's a good book narrator.
And
in any case,
he speaks so well. I love how he speaks. It's so deep and very slow and very calming. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and he's good at doing like a guided meditation thing. But I had done meditation before that, and I did have like pretty radically transformative experiences. We'll have to talk about them sometime because I had some pretty extreme experiences of that. But I definitely felt a sense of not just a sense of like I'm not in control. Like what I experienced was that basically I became an observer to my stream of consciousness. So I was observing me having thoughts from a third person perspective. Like I was, it was like I stopped having a persistent sense of identity. I was like, Lance exists, but I am not Lance. This is Lance. And it wasn't like I am Lance. There wasn't an I, there was no ego. And there was Lance was like an entity, and I was not the entity. So I was somehow able to break the sense of being a self, which was a very strange experience. I only did that 2 or 3 times.
Lovely.
And I never did it again. So I wasn't able to get back to that point. But I recall the experiences, and they were wild. So I do think that isn't. So I do think he's right that you can have genuinely transformative experiences through meditation, maybe through drugs. I wouldn't know on that score, but I've heard enough stories that I believe people. But I don't think that's an experience of not having free will. I think it's experience of lack of a sense of self, or a lack of a sense that you are in control of your actions. I see those as distinct from a sense that you don't have free will. I don't think that's a thing, like a sense of not having free will.
Okay. So Sam Harris usually says that. Yeah, Sam Harris usually says that these two are two sides of the same coin. Lack of self and lack of free will, both are two sides of the same coin. We can use interchangeably. But yeah, I also agree with you that we can differentiate between these two kind of feelings, the illusion of free will as well as the illusion of self. I mean, it's easier for me to, have the sense of lack of self rather than lack of free will. So I'm more grappled by the lack of free will, the sense of lack of free will. I mean, I'm more grappled by the sense of free will than I am by the sense of self, existence of self. So yeah, it's easier for me to dissociate the sense of self, but free will, it's really absorbed into my psyche. I hope that
Okay,
makes
fair
sense.
enough.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to have to wrap it up there. I'm very
Oh,
sorry
is
about
it?
that.
Oh, damn! I don't want to leave
So
you.
yeah, no,
Like that.
we got to get going. At least we hit about an hour. So, but
Yeah.
I do have to get going. So let's pick this up again, and we'll just wrap it up there if that's fine with you.
Sure, sure. It's almost 1 hour now that we have started recording. So yeah,
Yep.
I think good place to end this conversation. For today, we will have it later as soon as possible. And thank you guys for tuning in to Curiosity once again. Another podcast with Lance Bush. Super happy today to have spoken with him. And yeah, the episode 2 is gonna come up soon. So yeah, wait
Yep.
for that. Yeah.
All right. I will see you all soon. Thanks everybody for being
Sure.
here.